Bill Gertz, I'm so excited to be with you today to discuss your book that came out this past January, iWar, War and Peace in the Information Age. You are a national security columnist for the Washington Times and a senior editor at the Washington Free Beacon. And in the introduction, you talk about how this book is somewhat a culmination of your many years of experience following national security. Can you tell me a little bit why you published this book on this matter at this time?
Sure. iWar is really a look at what I feel is the new form of warfare that's emerging in the 21st century. I've covered national security affairs for over 30 years, been all over the world covering these issues, and I think it's a reflection of the information age that we're now looking at this new form of warfare, which I call information warfare, and I define that as both the technical cyber that we've seen so much of in terms of cyber attacks from the Russians and Chinese, as well as the content influence type of thing, and which really emerged in the last presidential election with the Russian, what's been called the cyber-enabled influence operation. So these two things, I believe, are going to be the dominant form of warfare. Just as information is really dominating our lives, so too in the realm of conflict we're going to see that. And our adversaries are looking into this. They're looking at it as a cheap way to achieve strategic goals without resorting to kinetic military conflict, which is expensive and costly in both terms of resources and lives.
So you bring up a good point. You talk about how society typically, when they think about warfare, they think of it in kinetic terms: soldiers, armies, bombs, land. And this discusses non-kinetic forms of warfare in the digital realm. Do you think the media and society as a whole has an awareness of the importance of information warfare and use of media and influence operation campaigns? Or is part of the goal of the book to raise awareness among the public?
Yeah, the simple answer is no. This is the point I make in the book, that we're under an information assault, and Americans are largely in the dark. That includes our government as well as at large. And as you might recall, in a recent hearing that you were the chair of, one of the witnesses testified about the Russian propaganda outlet RT, and an official from RT told him that RT would have no audience in the United States if the U.S. media were doing its job properly. So in a sense, what has traditionally been the role of the American media, that is to provide both education and information, has really fallen off. Right now we're seeing kind of a balkanization and politicization of the media into generally liberal and conservative camps, and they're not really presenting the kind of news, especially on international affairs and especially about our enemies. One of the things that I've always tried to do in my journalism career, as well as my career as an author, is to highlight threats. And the reason that I do that is because if people don't have an understanding of the threat, then it's really difficult to get the tools and the resources necessary to deal with the problems. And so, again, this is a threat book. It deals with the main threats of information warfare, and it tries to show that this is a serious strategic threat to the United States across a broad spectrum of areas, from international affairs to domestic